Welcome to APA Style, Citing Sources, part of the Writing Center Research Series. This presentation is split into 4 sections to guide you through properly citing your sources. This is Section 3, Variations on Basic In-Text Citations. This section presents what to do when sources have multiple or no authors, missing publication dates, multiple or no page numbers, and other variations, and presents how to cite second-hand sources. Big, exciting ideas, the kinds of ideas and research that get published, are often collaborative, meaning that several people work on them. Especially in the social sciences, journal articles and books often have more than one author. Here are some tips for how to document that in your in-text citations. Most commonly, you'll have sources that have more than one author. For sources with 2 authors, just list both last names with the ampersand and sign in between them. For sources with 3 to 5 authors, use commas to separate the last names, and then put the ampersand between the last 2, with a comma also. For 6 or more authors, this is the easiest. List the first last name, and then just write ET space AL period, comma, to represent the rest. That lets your reader know there are too many authors to list in the body of your text. There are different rules for how to do it for the references list, and we get to that in Section 4. Large groups such as universities, government organizations, and foundations often publish reports where the entire organization is listed as the author. Rather than using a single author's last name, you use the name of the organization in these cases. Sometimes you cannot find an author for an otherwise credible source. This is rare, and make sure your teacher allows you to use these kinds of sources in your papers. In these cases, you will use the title of the book or the first 2 or 3 words of the title of the article in quotation marks instead of an author's last name. For example, if the source is a book called College Bound Seniors, you write this, College Bound Seniors, in italics. If the source is a journal article, then you would use quotation marks, the first few words of the title, for example, Study Finds, ending quotation marks. You would use this instead of an individual author's last name. Some sources have no publication date. Again, check with your teacher to make sure you're allowed to use such sources in your paper. All you need to do is put N period, D period in place of the year of publication if there's no date. This signals to your reader that the source has no publication date. A very common variation is when you use a quotation that starts on one page and continues on to the next. For this, you need to make 2 changes to the basic format. First, instead of writing P period, you write PP period. The extra P signifies to your reader that the quotation came from multiple pages. Second, you write the first page number followed by a hyphen followed by the last page number. So if you use a quotation that starts on page 89 and finishes on page 90, you would write PP period 89-90. Especially with sources that are originally published online, having no page number is increasingly common. For these sources, you must include the paragraph number instead of the page number. So if you use a quotation from the 6th paragraph, you write para period 6. One of the most common variations that you should be familiar with is using indirect quotations or second-hand sources. Here's what happens. Sometimes you read a journal article, and inside that article, there's a quotation from another article that you find really interesting. You decide that it would be perfect to put in your paper. So what do you need to do? First, you must try to locate and read that original source. So if you read a quotation by someone named Matsuda in Dana and Ferris and John Hedgecock's book, you should try to find the original article written by Matsuda. This is why in-text citations are so important. You can look at the author's last name and the publication date, then use these to look up the title of the source in the references list at the back of the book or article. Once you have all of the publication information, you can go to the library or onto the library database and search for the original article by Matsuda. If you find it, then you just look at that page number where the quotation came from, and voila, you get to use this original source in your own paper. But occasionally, you won't be able to find or access that original source. When this happens, you can still use the information, but you have to take a few extra steps. First, you use the original source author's name, in this case Matsuda, in your sentence in a signal phrase. For example, according to Matsuda. Then you include the quotation or paraphrase. Not all students use written plans in preparation for writing. After the quotation or paraphrase, you put parentheses and then write as cited in. Then include the original author's last name, in this case Ferris and Hedgecock, again using the ampersand. And then the page number where you found the information in Ferris and Hedgecock's book, not in the original Matsuda source. This is a common mistake writers make, including the publication information from the original source instead of the source where you actually read the quotation. You can only include citations for sources you read, not for sources you didn't read, no matter where the original information came from. This is a good rule to have in the back of your mind, but it's best and easiest to look this up to make sure you get all the parts correct. For other variations, you can use a writing handbook such as Diana Hacker's A Writer's Reference, or visit OWL Purdue online.